What's going on, Vapor fans? I hope you guys are ready for the return of the Straight Volt. Okay, guys, so it's been a while since we did anything, but tonight is going to be super interesting, okay? Because we're going to be talking about different kinds of batteries regarding China batteries and rewraps and doing some detective work, okay? So before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and introduce what is happening over at the Pegasus Vapor Academy website. Okay, so PegasusVaporAcademy.com, for all those that you don't know, we'll leave the link in the description below. Now, other than what is a few cool things that are going on at the shop right now, there's a few new categories of batteries and stuff like that for sale. You definitely want to check out the blog section, because over at the blog section, other than the Steam Wave Aromizer sale that we have going on, the battery graphs from the Straight Volt show. Okay, so I had a family member help me out over here with using Dropbox and whatnot, and finally I've worked out something so that, like, no more credit cards, no more like whatever anything. Okay, I was able to offer the battery graphs and the files or whatever digitally for free on the website. However, it required you to go, you know, even though it didn't charge anything, like it did like this stupid credit card thing. But now anybody can come over to the website right now and download the battery graph viewer software, as well as the Straight Volt battery graphs of all the graphs that I have done over here over time on the show. Okay, so going with this, it'll take you over to the Dropbox area where it's shared with everybody, and you will see a whole bunch of different kinds of folders with like Aspire batteries, EFM batteries, blah, 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 all the stuff that I have done. Okay, and then from here you could go ahead and download, you know, different batteries and the battery files and stuff over to your computer. And then what is cool about it is that, unlike other graphs, most graphs are all JPEG photos. Okay, however, these graphs, once you start downloading them and then putting them into the viewer software, you could go ahead and change the lines. You can make them dotted lines, change the colors to the lines, and most importantly, overlay them to other graphs. And therefore, you'll be able to compare and contrast between all sorts of batteries that are out there. So if you really want to make a nice sound decision between an HE4 over a 25R, you may download these graphs and absolutely do so for yourself. So through this, I'm going to also show you how to become a battery detective. Okay, so recently I've been receiving a whole bunch of different batteries, as well as other gear from different kind of China companies. As a reviewer, you will always get something in your spam mail or whatever from different kinds of China companies saying, hey, will you review our stuff? Will you review our stuff? I think they're very bold, because they take a very big gamble on the idea that, like, most people are very good in nature, and they're not really going to bash your stuff or anything like that, and just try to get some exposure out there, and then just, you know, give stuff out like that, right? But that's not the way things work over here on the Straight Volt, because on the Straight Volt we have actual equipment to tell you what is actually going on with every single battery out there. So let's begin. What are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about a company called EFan, we're going to talk about MXJOs, and we're going to talk about AWT batteries. Okay, now MXJOs and MXJOs I've done before, but I'm going to touch a little bit more about them one more time. Okay, so regarding EFan batteries and MXJOs and AWT, what I want to set right now for the record straight, okay, is that I want to apologize to my friends over at EFan and MXJO and AWT. You guys sent me this stuff. It was very kind of you. This is not a negative review. This is not a bashing review. This is a truth review, because it is what it is, and nobody is going to believe me if I told people that I don't know what these batteries are, okay? Not after all this time and not after so much research. So let's begin over here. It's up to you how this is going to sit with you, okay? After I looked up EFan, this company, and just, you know, did a quick, you see what's in my search bar right here, EFan 18650, and just go over to images and look at it. EFan has really, like, tried to keep up with, like, all sorts of competitors throughout the time. You know, they really try to keep up out there. What do I mean? Well, it's kind of like this. They have every single battery wrapper for every single battery that has ever been the leader in the battery game. for instance, this battery over here clearly resembles an AW battery to me, as well as the earlier EFES stuff. The purple ones is definitely like the purple EFES. This one looks like an Orbtronic, and then these look like when Amped was, doing very well. And the baby blue ones over here kind of tell me that, they're a little bit on the wannabe 25R side, perhaps. Look, this is all my speculation, and I could be wrong about that, but that's really what it looks like to me. Maybe it looks the same to you. But let's move on with a little bit of the story on this, okay? Now, EFM was a company that contacted me that wanted to send me 2 sets of their batteries, which is the new pink stuff and some black stuff that they have. Okay, so I'll hold that to the camera real quick. Now, the pink ones claim to be 3,000 mAh batteries, 40 amp continuous, and 60 amp pulse. The others is 2,800 mAh at 40 amps and continuous discharge at 25 amps. Okay, so let's just set that aside. You have that information. That is our given, okay? Let's move on with that real quick. So, night after night, I was very busy with other projects, because anybody who follows what happens on PVA knows that at any given time we are swamped with all sorts of cool things, whether it's sales and other educational things and projects and stuff going on always. So I tried my best to squeeze in time to review something or whatever if I can, especially if stuff is a game changer or really deserves a spotlight. So in this case, okay, every single night they would Skype me a friendly reminder. They weren't too pushy about it, but they did give me a lot of friendly reminders. Did you do the video, Peg? Did you do the video? So one night they decided to give me a link to a video for another reviewer who have said beautiful, wonderful things about the new pink EFM batteries. And to my shock, okay, they gave me a link to Vape Fog Reviews. VapeFog is a family member. He is a very, very long time subscriber of ours, and he's been with us ever since like very, very early in the PVA 40 project. So shout outs to VapeFog, brother. Now, I was watching what VapeFog had to say, and he had some very, very nice stuff to say about this. Now, this is absolutely before I threw their batteries onto my graphing test equipment and to see exactly what is going on. So, I'm listening to what VapeFog has to say, and I'm like, okay, so they're pretty good. And, he gives it like very, very good review of the batteries. He says they're great, and the price for what it's worth is very, very good. So I have a still over here that I wanted to show you guys one more time of how they promised the whole 60 amp and how it's made in China, etc., etc., okay? VapeFog, I love you, brother. I'm not calling your show out in any way or whatever. I'm sure that this is about, I just discovered this for myself as well, and I just feel as if everybody else should know really, really what's going on, okay? So in this particular episode of VapeFog, he uses the EFM batteries in parallel in his device, which is, for the most part, a very safe way of using the batteries, and I dig that. So there was another review over here. Oh, this is just to show that VapeFog has been with us forever. So there's another review over here that has used it in his Sigeli box mod. And Sigeli, of course, you put it in a box mod, your chip is going to protect you. So the way he is using it is also very safe. I'd also like to quickly point out how the batteries say IMR over here. For those of us nerds, you guys know that that means lithium manganese round cell. So let's get into the nitty gritty of this stuff, okay, shall we? So being with what I said before with like different kinds of graphs and such things, we're going to go ahead and pull up some graphs on this. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open up the folder over here, and this is where all the straight volt graphs are that I've loaded onto the Dropbox. So let's go over to EFM batteries. So the EFM pink batteries over here, they promise 3,000 milliamp hours, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the chart over here and show you guys what's going on. So recently I watched a little game show, okay, and there's this woman who wanted to demonstrate her memory, and she said that like she's been memorizing all sorts of stock graphs for the past 3 months. So what you could do is that you could take any stock graph, draw the outline of it, show her the outline, and she would tell you which stock that was. I thought that was really nifty. So after watching that and playing around with this stuff, you know, it kind of looks like a line graph, but there's not that many line graphs of batteries out there as opposed to stocks. So some of these shapes and stuff is kind of more or less burned into my retina. So when I saw this line graph of the pink EFM battery after I finished graphing it, I was like, this thing looks very, very familiar. Now, how do we go ahead and play detective in this case? Well, if I was to go ahead over here, right, and then see what the promise is and see basically what the amp hours was, this thing is close to a 3,000 milliamp battery. Okay, so what do we know that's about 3,000 milliamp hours of the new batteries that's out there? Well, there's the LG HG2 and then there's the Samsung 30Q. So had I gone over to the overlay over here and then showed you guys the, let's see, with the LG batteries, and we go with the HG2, the HG2 discharge curve shows you in green over here and doesn't really look right, so highly unlikely. So let's go ahead and hide this test. If we go back to the overlay and then pick out the other graph over here over on the Samsung batteries, so the 30Q discharge test. So as I open this, okay, lo and behold, look at that. If I go ahead and let's say we hide all other tests over here and then we just open this one up. Wow. Have we found brothers? They look very, very much alike. Now, granted, you know, at any time, depending on the bin of your battery, depending on how much charge was in your battery when you started it, or how much, you know, how many times of cycles that it's been through, more or less, okay, your graphs are going to be, you know, start at different points on the graph. However, because we're drawing these things at half an amp, okay, and half an amp will pretty much give us all the milliamp hours out of a battery. Even if the battery started at 4.2 or 4.15 or 4.1, drawing things at half an amp does not provide enough stress to give us a too off of a reading. Okay, so what happens is that more or less the roller coaster line curve for the most part is going to look the same, and then it's going to cut off at slightly different areas because there's more juice in a certain battery than the other based on its internal resistance. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move on. So now we know for a fact that Samsung 30Qs and EFM pink batteries are actually the same battery. About a year ago, before we started doing like all these graphs and stuff like that, people would just cut up batteries and open up the wrappers to see what was going on the inside, to see that like, wow, purple EFS batteries and LG HE2 batteries are the same batteries. They would take high-res photos and try to point out different the similarities as best as they can. If you went ahead, and for all of you out there who actually own a Samsung 30Q battery, if you check out one of the reviews of the EFM battery, you will see that both of them is using a 3-prong on the tip, okay, as opposed to most batteries like the LG batteries and other models and whatever are using the 4-prong. Okay, so let's go back into doing like more battery detective things, okay? So now we know that the EFM pink battery is actually a Samsung 30Q. I wonder how these reviews would have gone and how VapeFog would have gone over with this had he had this knowledge that these things are actually Samsung 30Qs as well as this. This one I found a little bit disturbing because at the end of the video he does talk about how he wants to shoot another video where he tries this stuff inside of a mechanical device. Now, if you are under the impression that these things can fire at 40 to 60 amps or whatever, then this is very, very dangerous. However, right now during these simple first look reviews, they're using it in the parallel mods and the Sigeli mod and stuff, so they're protected at the moment and they're going to be fine. I hope, you know, maybe this information finds them in some way and they'll refrain from doing so. So remember I also pointed out over here that in this battery it says IMR. Well, if you knew anything about the Samsung 30Q, you would know that this is an INR battery and then an IMR battery. An IMR battery is a manganese battery, while the INR battery is a nickel cobalt battery. Okay, so different chemistries. I don't know. I'm just trying to say that the whole thing is labeled wrong in many, many different ways. What I do know is that for the most part, what the market wants and what the market's knowledge of, what they know, is that IMR batteries are good. Get IMR batteries. Get hydrogen IMR batteries because they're, the safest batteries. They're the safe chemistry batteries, So people are looking for IMR batteries. People are looking for high numbers and stuff. And in order to stay in the game, that's what they do. However, what I do want to point out, okay, is that these batteries are not better nor worse than Samsung 30Qs because they are just Samsung 30Qs, okay? So what I did also like about VapeFog's review over here is that he did mention that he was able to get these things for very, very dirt cheap. So if at any time, if you could find EFM batteries for the pink ones for less than what the Samsung 30Qs go for, then you should just buy these, but knowing very, very well that they are Samsung 30Qs and not what's written on the box, okay? It also bugs me a little bit how it says made in China, knowing very well that these are Samsung Korean batteries, but that's another discussion. So let me put these things aside real quick and let's move on to the other EFM battery, which is the black one. So once again, we're going to go back to doing our battery detective. Okay, so what I have going on is that I have a file over here with the EFM Black, and we're just going to go ahead and open up the discharge curve on this. So this is what the discharge curve looks like. Okay, so because I work with so many graphs, a lot of things start to look a little more and more similar to me. Right now, I decided that this thing, it didn't look like a HE2 and it didn't look like a HE4 either. Even though what was promised on this thing right now, it's only at 88.5%, it's because the sticker itself says that this thing is 2,800 mAh. When the truth of the matter is, if I showed the plotted last point over here, it's 2.47963. So it's actually putting out 2.47-ish hundred mAh, right? And so that makes it more of a Type C 2500 mAh battery. So out of those type of batteries, what could I look for? Well, knowing very well that these guys were using a Samsung 30Q, I speculate that this thing might be a Samsung 25R. So I don't know if you guys use TeamViewer or something like this, but I have this TeamView to my laptop that is rigged up to the machine right now, and it's still graphing out, it's still slightly moving, and it's still slowly graphing out a Samsung 25R. But before it finishes and we can overlay it to each other, I'm just going to go ahead and leave these two side by side on the screen over here. And you guys tell me, is this going to end up graphing the same? Seems like it, feels like it to me. Like when you see the way this thing dips and then arches up and then it comes down again, the same slope manner as this one, all right? As we pass the 80% threshold line over here of where it's about to die, this is a genuine Samsung 25R, and this is their rewrapped that I speculate is a Samsung 25R. And I don't know, we will see what happens. But in the meantime, again, the importance of this is how to use these graphs for yourself to do your own battery detections. Okay, now moving on over here with MXJO and the AWT stuff. Okay, so the AWT over here, it says 2,600 mAh, and then the MXJO says 2,500. Okay, but this one says 35 amp, and then the other one says 35 amp, or sometimes even 40 amp. Let's find out what is really going on over here. So do I even have like all the graphs of everything? I apologize if I'm not prepared yet. Okay, so on the AWTs, I only have the power profile, so I'm gonna have to owe you guys that one. But on the MXJOs over here, I do have the discharge curve. Okay, and for the sake of saving time, I will go ahead and tell you exactly what the answer is that I found. Okay, so let's open this up real quick, bring this over to the screen, enlarge this, and then go over to the overlay. Let's find the LG HE2s. Okay, so LG bats over here, and then HE2s, and then the discharge curve. You will find that some of my graphs over here, they are labeled EXT. EXT is the extended version, meaning that, like, you know, it's going to have all the lines of 10 amps, 15 amps, 20 amps of what the line curve look like, okay? But what's most important is the basic discharge curve, because that's what really tells us, you know, how similar two batteries are. So when I place this curve on top of this curve, lo and behold, how similar they really are. So we could safely say that, yeah, the MXJO is actually just the HE2 battery, and it's up to you what you want to buy, okay? So my LG HE2 battery would actually give you a little bit more juice than an MXJO would. So you do what you got to do, right? Again, guys, these things were not meant to bash anyone or to be, you know, sad or to give a negative review or anything like that. It's really meant to just bring the truth to people through the graphs. Because at the end of the day, you know, you could slap a couple of different kind of batteries inside of different devices and tell me to take a vape on it, and I will tell you, yeah, they hit pretty hard. Maybe it's because your build was really good or something like that. I really wouldn't be able to know without the equipment telling me so. So that is our episode of the Straight Volt this time. Next time I'm considering doing a live episode of the Straight Volt, and what we will do is that we're going to whip out a whole bunch of Type C batteries that all claim to be like the best 20 amp batteries, and we will go ahead and power profile every single one of them live before you guys. And I think it'll be cool if you guys got your friends to come around and you know, bring out some change, bring out some chips or whatever, and make your bets, because it's going to be kind of like a little horse race thing of what is actually going to beat out what. Okay, so until next time, guys, as we always say here, question everything, do your homework, and vape clever, my friends. Take care.